All right, let's get started. Morning. As you can see, I'm not in my office anymore, right? I'm at the shop, so you'll actually get to see me do something today. I almost feel like nervous, excited because I actually get in here and do something, right? I'm sure you guys are gonna feel the same way. Uh, Bear with me. This is different, right? We've been doing stuff at home, and I got all my screens going, and I can move windows around, and now I'm just on the laptop. I got it on the card mobile. So things may go a little slower today, um, but what we'll do today is, like I told you on Friday, we'll do a run through of our practical exam, right, for oxy-acetylene fitness for duty test, right? Remember, you got to do an in-person, hands-on exam for me to consider you familiar enough with the torch to use it by yourself. So I'll show you what I expect from you for that, and then and also show you a little checklist that I follow that I kind of grade you on, right? And you can also use it as a study guide when we're practicing for it. When you do come into the shop, I'll give you that too, so you can go in order where I want it. And then I'll give you a little. I'll show you around the shop a little bit. I'll take the laptop back to my office in a minute here in the shop, and we can talk for a minute after. Um, if you have a question right now on this part or a comment, just say it, right? I'll probably hear you better because I'm going to be over here, and since I only have one screen, I may not see your chat, your comment. But when we go back to the shop, to the desk over there, you can just chat, send a message to answer back because I will have a few questions. So just be paying attention. Again, today's different. This is something you're going to actually have to do in person, right, with your hands, almost that first week whenever we do come back. So this is going to happen eventually, and this is a big deal. If you can't cut your metal efficiently, um, you're going to fall behind on the welding part, right? If you can see from the setup here, right, this is the welding booth. Turn the light on. That's where you're going to be welding, right there, right? Welding machine up on top. You probably don't, can't see it yet, but the way I have it set up is that every booth has a table right in front of it, a work table, right? And it's got a torch set up right next to it, connected to it. It's kind of tight quarters. Ideally, you would want a little more space in this, but this is the minimum, right? From here to where you're welding is almost exactly 6 feet, maybe 6 feet and a couple of inches. And that is the absolute minimum required by OSHA and AWS and all that, but that's all the space we have to work with. And then, all the hoses, pretty much all the equipment stays 6 feet away from the welding, but it is pretty tight quarters, so we do have to be careful. But that's why also I stress this stuff so much, is because if we mess up, you're going to find out real quick if you did something wrong. Because there's sparks flying around in here all the time, from grinding, from the welding, from cutting itself. You can't see it right now, but there's an exact setup just like this right next to us, and there's another booth, another booth, another booth, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty tight, and that makes safety high priority. It's already the first priority, but it's even more important because of the close quarters. And you always got to think about safety, but even more so when we're cramped all in this little shop. Okay, and I think we do a pretty good job of that. You'll find that I'll be all over you about that all the time, and I try to do it in a the least annoying way, right? But I'm gonna be on. If you're not wearing your glasses, I'm gonna see you from across the room and say, hey, or if you're not wearing gloves or whatever. So, with that being said, let's get started with the run through. Okay, anytime you come into the shop, right, this is going to be the bare minimum, right? It's going to be pants, a work shirt, and I'm talking about when you walk out of the locker room. That's right over there. I got to get down a little bit because can't see my face. So definitely going to have the long sleeve shirt, the work shirt, right? It can't just be like a Under Armour shirt or any kind of whatever you walked in with. This is the one I'm wearing today, but I have others. We have welding jackets. You can wear a t-shirt and a welding jacket over it. Um, then the pants, definitely a must. If you happen to come in shorts to school that day, that's all right. But I will have you put the coveralls on, and you may just elect to do that even if you're wearing pants. Maybe they're your favorite pants or whatever you want to get them dirty. You can definitely use the coveralls anytime you want to protect your clothing. And then we'll have a thin pair of gloves, hopefully by then. These are mine. These are just kind of general work gloves. Okay, they're not for welding. They're not for cutting. However, okay, there's an asterisk on there. You will see me doing a lot of stuff in these gloves all the time, right? And I expect you to call me out on it, but I may say it's all right for right now, okay? And I may let certain people use these to do certain things in the shop. Once you kind of graduate in my mind in the safety protocols, right? If I know you're really safe, you really know what you're doing, I'll let you use these to cut in. I'm going to cut in these today, but normally you're going to need your welding gloves. And I would recommend that. You're not used to it. You're going to touch things that are hot accidentally. Um, that's fine. I still do it too, but you got to have some kind of a glove on all the time. Um, Look at the table right now. Nothing's hot yet. We haven't cut anything yet. Everything is actually kind of cold. But once I start cutting, this is going to heat up to 1100, 1200 degrees, and it's going to look the exact same way. There's not any smoke that's going to come off of it for a while. I mean, maybe initially, but it's going to look the way it looks right now. And you can touch it, and you'll find out. It'll be too late if you touch something to find out if it's hot or not, right? So gloves all the time. These gloves will save you from a third-degree burn, right? They'll kind of be the sacrifice because they will melt and get a hole in them. But definitely want to have our gloves on in the shop all the time because, like I said, there's going to be other people working, and there may be hot things that you're not aware of that are hot. So I always have my glasses on too. That's all. This is all the required PPE, just standard. Doesn't matter what we're doing. We may not even be doing anything that day, but if you're in this shop, this is what you're wearing. Okay, and we've been through all that already. It's just a refresher. Okay, so I'm going to cut something. The first thing I would do, and this is not part of the test, this is just, let me get back here so you can see my whole head. It's not part of the test, but just in general, stuff you're going to need to do this job, right? Well, obviously you need the metal you're going to cut, right? Mine's right here. You'll need all your PPE, your gloves. I'm going to use welding cutting glasses today, and again, you will use a face shield or your welding face shield to do your cutting until I feel comfortable in you being safe and competent enough that I will actually start letting you use these. Okay? Even if you have your own, you bring your own, you're still going to have to use a face shield until I feel comfortable in your ability to use the torch. And then I'll let you use the cutting glasses. Not the safest thing, but they're a lot more comfortable and practical. And you're doing a lot of cutting, you're moving around a lot, but they're still allowable. But again, you're going down in the protection value. But again, the experience and the competency with the materials and the equipment, that also brings your safety value up. So that's where I put a balance on it. And I want you guys to be comfortable and use the best stuff. When we go to the cutting competitions, we use the cutting glasses if you want. So other things, so that's all the PPE, right? We got the gloves, right, that you're going to use, the cutting glasses or your face shield, whatever. And that's it, right? And then I may have my cutting jacket. I'm going to cut in this shirt today. I have other welding shirts. But you want a thick cotton or leather, long sleeve, something, right? So as far as equipment, so you got your material. The next thing you're going to need that goes with the material is something to write with, right? We got our soapstone here. This is also soapstone, but it's in pen form. This is mine. Makes it easy to draw. You want to be able to draw your lines. Make sure you know where you're going to cut. We don't eyeball stuff in here. We measure and we draw straight lines. This is a scribe. We've talked about this before. Right? It's going to just pretty much scratch a line. These are really good for marking metal because it's a permanent mark. It doesn't come off, and it's really easy to see with a welding hood on. But it doesn't work that great with shiny metals. If your metal is very clean, which it usually isn't, or if you're working with a real shiny stainless or aluminum, but it still actually works pretty good. The advantage to this is that it doesn't come off. You make the line, it's going to stay there forever, right, until you grind it off or you cut it off. The reason I'm not using my pen or a Sharpie is because the ink, once we get the torch that's lit anywhere near it, that's going to disappear. It's going to go away. Okay, so we don't want to do that because then you're just freelancing it after that. So we want to put something that's going to stay and that's heat resistant, and that's this soapstone, that's our scribe, etc. So we'll also have something to measure with, like a tape measure that I didn't put out here, but this you can kind of quick measure with also. This is our speed square, a framing square if you want to call it. It's a 6-inch or 7-inch. And this is great for making straight lines. You put it right on the metal, you put it up against the edge, and then you trace the straight line there. You can just trace all the marks that you need. But I generally tell everybody to mark one, cut one. Mark one, cut one. Don't pre-mark all your cuts. Usually, if you want them to come out a certain size, because they're going to come out different because of the curve, right? Because of the material that you take away. I like to measure each one. Okay. So as far as the torch goes, you need all your torch setup, right? We've already been through all that, right? This is the complete setup, and we won't take any more time than that. Also, you need your water, your bottled water with soap in it to leak check. Okay, so we'll get into that in a minute. There's usually a wrench with the torch setup, right? Because you're going to need this to tighten or loosen or whatever you have to do. This is what you need. Combination wrench, or there may be the actual size wrenches that you need. That would be the preferred option. But the crescent is the second. You need your striker, right? That's what you're going to light your torch with, right? Makes a spark. Please don't stand here and play with it. That's what everybody does all the time. I don't know why. They stand there and spark, spark, spark. These things run out, right? They only have a certain amount of sparks that they can make, right? And if you stand here the whole period and strike the arc, it's going to run out. And also, that's a spark that could ignite something. You never know what's leaking in the shop, so that's also a safety risk. Okay, so that's your striker. So again, this kind of is part of the test because you need to make sure you have all your stuff in it. And this actually what I'm doing right now is part of our take a minute. Right? We've gone through that in our safety section. Let's not forget about that. Before I showed up, before I start working, I need to do that take a minute. And if you don't remember, take a minute is where you take an actual minute, plus or minus, to make sure that everything is the way it should be in your work area, right? So when I walk out of the locker room, I come over here, got on my PPE, got it. I got all the tools I need, yep. Look around. Is there anything around here that shouldn't be here that I'm going to light on fire? Is there a person too close? All that has to be taken care of before you start working. So that's pretty much what we're doing right now. But as far as the test goes, you do need to make sure you have everything you need as far as the torch goes. So the striker, you need something to pick the metal up with. It's going to be hot. You can't pick it up with your gloves, or it's going to damage the glove. Right? And with these thin gloves, it's going to definitely melt the glove and then burn my hand within a couple of seconds. And it's going to be extremely painful. So you don't want to be picking up by hand. You can kind of get away with it with the welding gloves. These are good welding gloves. And you can pick it up. By the time you get to where you're going with that piece of metal, you're going to feel it, and the glove's going to be smoking. Right? The more you do that with these gloves, the stiffer they get, and by the middle of the semester, you can hardly close the fingers, and they're hard to work with. So don't do that. We have channel locks just for that, picking up hot metal. They work pretty good. You just grab the metal with it, walk around, take it to the water, quench it, or put it somewhere to cool. So also you see this other kind of clamp, a vice grip clamp, or whatever you want to call it. Ratcheting clamp is what it's called. All right, these are good for clamping the metal down to the table. All right, I have a big long piece here, it's almost 4 feet long. It's not going to go anywhere if I cut it. So I don't really need a clamp to clamp it down right now. If I was going to grind on it, definitely I would clamp it down. But just to cut it with a torch, it's fine. But if it was shorter, and I was worried that it's going to fall off the table once I cut it, you definitely need to clamp it down. The part that I'm cutting off, I'm going to let fall down to the floor where I have a piece of metal. You'll hear it. You'll hear the piece I cut off clank on the metal on the floor, just to protect the floor from the heat. Make sure it doesn't damage the concrete floor, set any paint on fire, or anything like that. And it's just easy to clean up. But you definitely want to protect your floor. Make sure that your hot piece that you drop doesn't touch anything, any hoses or anything that can melt or burn. Let's see. So at first, when you're still learning, I'll let you have the rundown, the check off. But for the actual test, I'll be the one with it, and I'll be checking off all the boxes. Make sure you do it all. But when you're first practicing for it, I'll let you have it on the table. That's okay. Right? Generally, you don't want to have any paper around on the table or any kind of trash. But for the purposes right now, we'll keep it around. Okay? Just got to keep an eye on it, make sure you don't set it on fire. Fire extinguisher is by the door back there behind me. There's one across the room. There's one over here by the other exit. You gotta know where those are at all times. There's usually water right there in the quench tank right across from me in the middle of the shop. And there's always this if you need water. If this paper would have to turn on fire, I may use that. I've used my coat before to put out the fire. But again, like we said in the safety section, just stay calm. We're working with fire. We're gonna light stuff on fire accidentally. It's just in these cramped quarters, that's what happens. But we've had the proper training to know what to do calmly, how to do it to correct that. But again, during your take a minute, you want to make sure that all that stuff is taken care of. You won't have a need to set out a trash can, to put out a trash can fire if you move the trash can away from where you're going to cut. That's how we fix those kind of safety issues. Get them out of the way before it becomes a problem. And that's pretty much it once you've kind of checked out the area like that. And again, in your mind, it'll take a minute, right? Right now that I'm going through all the steps I'm talking about, it's probably been like 5, right? Or more. But really just to eyeball it real quick should take seconds. But we call it a take a minute in the industry. That's where the way I was trained. And this is aside from our safety brief that we already had in our classroom, or where we had our safety brief, our daily before class safety brief, where we do talk about all the hazards and everything we're doing that day. But this is kind of your own safety brief that you do when you get to your welding booth, right? Because the 4 guys, or however many guys that we're breaking up the groups into, that were here the class before you may have left something out of place or not out of the ordinary, and it's up to your group and you individually to spot that. Right? The next group over there may have a different situation. The next group on the end, their booth may be all set up and ready to go. So that's why we do a safety brief, and then you do your own personal take a minute when you get to your work site. And that's the way we do it in the industry. When you go to work, you work for a safe company, that's probably what you're going to end up doing anyway. So get used to it now. Okay, so let's start with a test, and I'll share this test with you. We have pictures. I have a bunch of different ways you can look at it. We have the video already of Mr. Nahosa doing it. I'm recording this, and you'll get to watch me do it whenever you need a refresher. But after we do all this and we'll go back to my desk, we'll talk about the steps. I'll present the steps to you, and we'll read through it together. But I'm going to run through it right now so you can just see it visually. So the first thing you want to do is crack one of the cylinders. It doesn't matter which one you start with. You're going to run through a whole process with each cylinder. I don't care which one you go first. It doesn't matter to me. I always do the oxygen first. I don't know why. It's just the way I've always done it. So let's start. I'm going to make sure, though, that all my valves are closed. All right? And make sure that everything is closed off from whoever used it before you. Right? Okay, everything's good. And actually, I had already used it, so it's already kind of set up. But I'm going to start from scratch, just like you would. Okay. So the first thing I would do, visually inspect the hose, make sure that everything is there, right? That this hose maybe is off, somebody disconnected it and didn't put it back, whatever. Visually check, all right, it's all set up. Okay, we'll go through the actual setup of it another time. That's not part of the test. Okay, so everything's good. I want to crack my oxygen cylinder. Crack it. We're not opening it, we're not turning it on, we're just cracking it for right now. Remember, cracking means we're just going to pressurize the cylinder, the hose, and then turn the valve off. So we're just cracking it. Big part of the test, and what everybody messes up, and I usually count them off for, is they don't stand to the side. Remember, we saw that picture of the regulator blown out. We saw another one blown out in the back. The gauges can blow out. This is high pressure, right? Right now it's at 1300 psi, right? That's enough to mess you up pretty good. So you want to stand to the side, preferably away from the regulator, but either side is okay. I think on this side it's safe. So I'm going to stand to the side, I'm going to crack it. That means I'm just going to open it real quick and close it again. Okay, my pressure went up, and we'll do another video again of just this setup that I'll put a close-up view on the gauges. And you've already seen that close-up view on the video that when Mr. Nahosa is doing this. So I cracked it, my pressure's up. I'm going to turn the turning screw in to pressurize my hoses now. It doesn't matter to what. Okay, you probably heard it go psh. That means I put some oxygen into the oxygen hose and cause my pressure to drop a little bit, because remember, this is closed now. I'm only drawing from what's in the regulator to fill the hose. So my hose is pressurized. All right, I'm going to purge it before I do anything else. And if you remember from the worksheet, purging means you're just clearing out the line. All right, so I'm going to empty it out. Pushing the cutting lever until it goes to 0. You can also simultaneously open the oxygen control valve. It might make it go a little quicker. Or just do the oxygen control valve. I don't care. Whatever it takes to get all the oxygen out of this green hose and the torch. Okay, so it went back down to 0. Okay, so now I know without a doubt that first of all, there's nothing in this hose, and whatever was in there is just oxygen. Right? And the reason we do this is because it is possible to backflow, backfill. If some of these check valves were to fail, you don't want acetylene in here, into this hose or into this part of the torch, mixing with your oxygen. Okay? So we purge to make sure of that. Okay, we're just kind of cleaning out the. So we're going to make sure it's all off and backed out again. We're done. So I'm going to purge the acetylene now. Same thing. I'm going to crack it. Kind of by habit, I move to the side, but you don't have to for the low pressure. All right, crack it a little bit, close it again. Pressurize my hose by turning the the key here. Okay, now my hose is pressurized. Make sure there's not any open flames or sparks because the fuel will ignite. But I'm going to let it all out right now. First, I'm turning the fuel valve on. Everything's at 0 now. I'll turn it back off. Make sure everything's off. And now I'm done with the purging. My lines are purged. Okay, so we can check all those off. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my oxygen and I'm going to set up the pressure. Right, I'm going to set it up for use. Okay, so very important you have your safety glasses on for any of these parts because high pressure can take your eyes out. Okay, if there was some kind of failure. So again, I'm sure that my valves are off, and I'll also keep an ear out. You know, if I turn something on and I hear some hissing, if I hear the regulator, you can kind of hear the gas going through it. Something's leaking, right? Make sure everything's off. So keep an eye out for that. It gets really loud in here, but I can still hear it. I can hear it from across the room. It's possible, right? It is loud enough to hear. So again, I'm going to stand to the side, turn my oxygen valve completely on, all the way on. Remember, these only make a good seal, all the way closed or all the way open, nothing in between. Right? So there, I hit the end. I'm not going to force it. You know, this is all finger tight. I'm not cranking on anything. Okay, this is all gentle. Everything you want to do with all this stuff, take it easy. Nothing requires a lot of force. Right? So once I get to the top again, it stops turning, I'm done. Okay, and I'm going to go over. Now I can stand in front, right? And actually, once you crack it, once you get that first turn going and nothing blew up, you're fine to come back to the front. It's probably not going to fail after that. Okay. So now I'm going to take the key or the whatever you want to call it, the turn screw. There's all kinds of names for it. The T handle. But I'm going to set my pressure now. Okay, I'm going to set it to 25, and I got that from a chart. Right, there's a chart for everything in welding. There's one on the wall over here. There usually is one by or on the torque setup itself. But for the most part, we kind of set it up for the same metal almost every day because we use the same metal a lot. So I'm going to go 25. You can probably hear it, pressure going up. There's 25, right? I'm going to check it under flow also to make sure that it doesn't drop down too low. When you open the valves, the pressure will drop because it's outflowing. Okay, and I'm going to raise it, maybe call it 26, so that when I'm using it, it's 25. You want it to be 25 right here, more than over here.
Please excuse the interruption, because there's no yellow on the alarm system, so it goes off. It's just a test. Once again, they are testing on the alarm system, so it goes off. It's only a test. Thank you.
Of course, that would happen today. So we're done. Our pressure is set for oxygen now. Okay, we're going to do the exact same thing over here with our acetylene. Remember, the acetylene, you don't open all the way. You want to open the minimal amount for the pressure to come up all the way. All right, so I have 150 psi in this cylinder. I already know that from checking it. So I'm going to open it until it comes up to that pressure. It may be half a turn, it may be a turn, but you want to open it the minimal amount of turns that you can. Right? Generally, they say half a turn or less, but some of these valves are really messed up and old, and it might take almost 2 turns sometimes to get to actually come to flow correctly. So it's open. It's not all the way open. Remember, this is a low pressure cylinder, so you don't need to open it all the way for it to make a seal. Okay, so I'll set my acetylene pressure now. Now, it was already turned in a little bit, and now it's at 11, right? I want it at 5. That's a problem. So how do I fix that? Okay, what you do is you back it all the way out, or back it some of the way out so you can lower it. You'll notice when we try to lower the pressure, nothing happens. And that's because you've already let that pressure in here. There's already 10 psi in here. You can't erase that physically, just because of the laws of physics, right? You got to get that 10 psi acetylene out of there before it'll show on your gauge over here. This gauge is just reading what is in this hose. Right? It just reads it, doesn't control it necessarily. All right, so let's take that acetylene out of my hose. All right, now I went back down to 4. I'm going to raise it back up so we can get to 5, okay? And you know what, just from experience, I know that this regulator underflow for acetylene runs about a PSI low. So I'm going to put it at 6, check it under flow, and now it's at 5. Just a tiny bit over. That's okay. This is all. Most of these figures are approximate. The chart will tell you, but you can always adjust, plus or minus whatever, a couple of psi to make it cut better, to make it cut the way you want. Maybe I'm using a real small tip right now. I may have to come up a little bit on the pressures, so to make it cut the way I want. It looks okay right now. Okay. Now, very important. After you set all the pressures, leak check. It's a big deal. Right? It's very important. This is going to save us from those catastrophic fires, or the close calls from leaks. Because again, we're welding right here. If that cylinder is leaking, we're gonna light that fuel up at some point. Right? So we got to make sure it's not leaking from any point. I'm gonna take my soapy water. I'm gonna spray it on all the connections. Make sure it's kind of on the spray, not the stream. I'm gonna put all the connections. Put some soap on it. Even on the torch, down here, up here, and at the tip. Okay. You and your partner, whoever's helping you set up, or during the test, it'd be just you, right? But anybody can help you look for leaks. We're looking for bubbles, right? The gas coming out will hit this soapy water, and it'll start making bubbles. Either it'll make a lot of little bubbles, or it'll start forming a big one, which is obviously like, oh, there's a leak. No leaks right now. Everything looks good. If there was a leak, you would need to turn the cylinders off, correct the leak, and then start the process all over. Not a big deal, but you definitely don't want any leaks. Again, that's where we have those times where people get all panicky and they run around, and even though it's just a little flame, but those are close calls, and they can turn into big fires and big explosions if we don't act correctly. Okay, so we got our leak check. Now it's time to come over and start using the torch. Hopefully I don't go out of the frame too much. Make sure my torch is not, my hoses are not under. I know you're going to want to bring the torches around the front of the table sometimes where you're cutting. It just seems easier, but you don't want your hot stuff falling on your hoses, right? That's bad. Running around the back. There's a coil over here. If it's not reaching, just take off some more. Drop it down. And now we can put some more ropes. Whatever you need to do to make it comfortable. Okay, so now we'll set the neutral flame, and we'll have another class just on that. But right now it's enough for me to just say I'm going to set the neutral flame. Make sure you have all your PPE ready and on you before you light the torch. Don't light it and then start sparing it for your shield or your glasses or whatever. That's not very safe, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the PPE. So I'm going to put my cutting glasses on, which are also Z87 safety glasses, right? They're shade 5, so they are dark enough to protect me from the bright light that's going to come off here. Okay, so I always make sure that this oxygen valve down here is all the way on. Okay. And I usually leave them all the way on all the time. And we control the oxygen from the oxygen control valve up here. Okay. You can hear it coming out. Then you control the acetylene. Remember, the red hose is for the fuel. And there's an F on next to that valve for fuel. That's the acetylene valve. Right. That's how you control that. So again, the oxygen valve down here, don't worry about it. Just make sure it's on, and that's all you do with it. You control it from up here, from the lever and the oxygen control valve. This is where most people get hung up at first. Right? It kind of takes them a while to figure out what's what and what to do first. This is also kind of part of the test. It's not really a checkbox, but I expect you to be able to turn it on and use it, right? That's what we're doing now. Okay, so this part of the test, you've already set everything up. Now I expect you to come turn the torch on, set the flame correctly, and make a cut, a semi-straight cut. I don't really care. You guys are just learning, so right now, I'm not really too concerned about how pretty it is, but I do definitely want you to be able to make an actual cut. A cut it goes all the way through, and it falls off. Remember, and I think we've mentioned it before, body position is very important. So before you turn your torch on, make sure that everything is situated where you can cut it comfortably. You can brace yourself. You're gonna want most of the time 3 points of contact um, to make a cut, right? So you need your 2 feet on the floor and an elbow or something touching the torch, right? So that's 3. Right now it's just really 2, right? My 2 feet are on the floor and the torch is just kind of free. But if you lean down on the table, put another hand or something, it really gets a lot steadier. Okay, so just an advice. Can you cut it like this, just freehand? Yeah, of course, but it's going to be a lot shakier. Right? It's going to be a lot less straight of a line. Okay, so like I said, make sure that you can get comfortable to cut before you light the torch. Make sure you got all your stuff. Okay? And now we can set the flame. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is turn on the acetylene. Right? You want to have your striker already with you before you do that. Don't turn the acetylene on and then start looking for the striker. Who took my striker out? Fuel is coming out of there all the time, and again, that fuel can get ignited by anything in our shop pretty much. Somebody grinding, somebody cutting next to you, somebody welding somewhere else. And the sparks go everywhere. Our shop's not big enough to shield you all the time from the sparks, from welding or grinding. So again, have the striker in your hand, turn the acetylene on, and you just want to crack it right now. You just want to have it coming out a little bit. Right? Light it. Right? You want to make sure that your flame is rooted. If there's a little gap between your acetylene flame and the torch tip, you have too much acetylene coming out. Right? It'll look like that right there. It even sounds too loud, and there's a gap. You may not be able to see it on this camera right now, but we will do this again with a closer view. So I'm going to lower my acetylene. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? If you tighten the valve, it's shutting it off, so it makes the acetylene come out less. Okay, right there is not enough acetylene. You can see that black smoke coming off of it, right? All right, that's not enough acetylene. You want to add the acetylene until that black smoke goes away. So about right there. Right, flips real feathery. It's kind of got a little roar to it, not a hiss. Okay, that's the sound and the sight you want. But generally, that dark smoke, once it goes away, you're probably good on the acetylene. Now it's time to add the oxygen over here, not down here, but up here on this control valve. Okay. So we'll add it until my neutral flame is set with this torch. It's almost immediately right there. I'll show you a close-up view another time. I've shown you one already of the little preheat cones there and what they're supposed to look like when you have the right amount of oxygen. Okay. So that's setting the flame. So that's another checkbox there on the list. Now you're ready to cut. So remember, we preheat half on and half off the metal before we start cutting. And you want to angle your torch with the tip a little bit towards the direction that you're going, so it preheats ahead of you. So you don't want to cut necessarily too straight down. You want to give it a little angle, maybe 15 degrees like that. Right? But when we preheat, you want to go straight down. Right? So I'm going to preheat it until it's pretty bright orange. A lot of people say cherry red, but I've never seen it get that color. And you're not going to be able to see that with your green welding shield. Right? So once it gets starts to look a little liquid, I'm gonna start cutting. I'm gonna push the oxygen lever down to cut. Yeah. Let me preheat again, and I'll continue my cut. You want to be about 1/8 of an inch away from the metal. Okay, so you saw my piece of metal fall. I'm going to make sure it's safe right there where it is. It's fine. And now I can turn my torch off. This is part of the checklist too. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my fuel off. Okay? Down here, fuel. That's the way we normally do it. Actually, we're going to do it the other way. The old way is to do acetylene first. We're going to turn our oxygen off first. That will totally extinguish the flame, right? Most of the time, but it stays on there. And then I'm going to give it a little torch. Okay, and that's it. On a second thought, we'll do the fuel first. Let's turn the fuel off, and then we'll turn our oxygen off. There's already oxygen in the room, right? So if it continues to flow, we're not really hurting it, changing the conditions in the shop. But if we let our fuel continue to flow, right, that's not safe, right? So again, so that is the whole process. Once you're done, though, I will expect you to put that metal in a safe place to make sure that you don't step on it, because that happens a lot. People will forget that it's there. They'll walk around to look at their cut and step directly on this piece of metal that's still probably 700 degrees. It's cooling down pretty fast, but I don't have my thermometer here to show you how incredibly hot this is. I could probably show you with some of the soapy water. Even though it just looks like a regular piece of metal right now, the water instantly boils. That will melt through your belt if you stand on, your boot, if you stand on it long enough. So let me put this safe in place. We do have the quench tank that you can use to cool down your metal faster. All right, so I'm done with my cutting glasses now. I'll put my regular glasses back on. That is one of the disadvantages of these kind of glasses. You got to take them off once you stop cutting. And with face shield, you just flop it up, take it off, and you can go right to what you're doing next. Okay, so not done with the test yet. So we made our straight cut. Now we need to turn it off. We're done for the day. We're leaving. I'm going to go home, and I'm not going to come back to this job. So I'm going to shut it all the way down. Or I guess we can shut it all the way down for the next day. We're not going to totally disconnect everything for the test, but I just want it shut down correctly. So we're going to re-purge our lines. Right? I don't want to leave any acetylene in this hose overnight. Someone may come and cut the line accidentally. Something may fall when nobody's here, and now there's acetylene in the shop. So let's not do that. So we're going to purge all our lines. You can do it one by one. I usually just turn both off at the same time. You turn the cylinder valves off. All the way off. And again, don't crank down. Once it stops turning, just make sure with your fingers to give it a little more force, and that's enough. They're sealed. Cranking down with everything you got on it is not going to make it seal any tighter. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to make it harder for somebody to open it, and then eventually will damage the seal. So this knob is real loose and doesn't make a good seal after all. So lightly close them. Make sure they're both closed. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Turn it to the right, clockwise, to turn it on. Okay? So now I need my torch in my hand while I'm doing this part. I'm going to look at the acetylene first. I'm going to open that valve up, make sure that I'm not throwing fuel on anything hot or any open flame. Let all that go away. Done. Everything's zero. So now this line is purged. I'm going to do the same thing with oxygen. Okay, I pick 0. And that's it. I'm done. I backed out. Oh, I back out the regulators. The last part. Okay, I'm gonna back that T handle out so that when the next person comes, it doesn't pressurize when we turn on the valve. All the way out. You don't need to take it all the way off or anything. Just back it out. Okay, and that's it. Put your torch down, and that'll be the end of the test. So I think what we'll actually do is save the overview of this for tomorrow, because I think I did a pretty good job of explaining all the steps. But this will all be available to you. And again, like I said, there will be one by your station when you're first learning, so you can everybody knows. Okay, we're on this step now. Now we do this. Now we do that. And then you should be familiar enough with it once it's time to test to do it by yourself without any notes. Because I really do need you to be able to do it, and it's really not. I know it seems like a lot right now because I'm explaining a bunch of stuff, but you can do all of this in about a minute. Right? When you get used to it, you're just doing it. When I came in this morning, I turned it on, I set it up. I even had to change one of the tanks, and I made a cut in less than a couple of minutes, 5 minutes or less. So it's not that long a process. I know it just looks like it because I'm talking right, but. We'll just stop there and save this for tomorrow. So we can go into more depth about it. So, does anybody have any questions right now? Okay. I hope you guys are excited as I am for you guys to come in and start doing this. Even just for me, it felt good just to come and turn all this stuff on and try to get back to normal, right? But we will eventually. And like I said, just stick with it. Eventually, we will be back in the shop. And that's why I'm trying to get all this stuff out of the way so that we can just come in here and start getting our hands dirty and get some work done. Right? So, unless you guys have any questions for me, that's all I have. And like I said, tomorrow we'll discuss this more in depth in class, just talking about the steps and the checkoff list. And I'll probably have a little quiz about it. But that'll be tomorrow. Okay, so unless you guys got anything for me, questions, comments, concerns, we'll see you tomorrow.